everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Kevin McDonald is a founding member of my favorite sketch comedy group of all time, The Kids in the Hall. In 1996, they released the fantastic cult comedy classic Brain Candy, and this weekend, you can see Kevin's personal VHS copy of the director's cut at the Alamo Drafthouse in Brooklyn. I think it's tonight, actually. And you can also hear Kevin regularly on his podcast, Kevin McDonald's The Kevin McDonald Show. Now, let's take a look at the trailer for Brain Candy.
How do you feel, patient 957?
Like a fresh towel.
Rorator Pharmaceutical, makers of the world's leading tablet for gas,
Fascinating.
was in trouble.
My empire is crumbling!
They needed a new product.
We might be releasing the most effective antidepressant ever.
Go on.
Really don't have my notes with me.
They needed it now.
Is it ready for production?
Yes, sir. It's ready to go.
Have there been any side effects?
Yes, sir. A few side effects. Woohoo! Is this the result we're looking for?
Paramount Pictures and Lakeshore Entertainment present the first motion picture from the Kids in the Hall.
We think that everyone should have access to it, like ghetto children. Apparently their lives are horrible.
If you know them, you know what to expect.
Really kinky stuff like two dogs making love with a cat.
If you don't,
Hey, you kids, get out from under that lady's dress.
we apologize in advance. David Foley,
So your dad's dead. Hey, is that eggnog?
Bruce McCullough,
Something wrong? No.
Kevin McDonald,
The handcuffs, totally necessary, officer.
That was your husband's idea.
Mark McKinney,
The baby kid. Baby?
Did you feel that?
Scott Thompson,
I'll be good. I'll learn to like hockey.
Five Guys,
Mrs. Hurdiker? Get out of my head! Get out of my head!
multiple personalities,
Do you think I look too feminine?
one movie. The Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy.
It's got your eyes. And it's got features that look like various friends of mine. Hey!
Everybody, please welcome the great Kevin McDonald.
The not so bad Kevin McDonald. Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very Canadian and humble of you.
Yes, the not so bad Kevin McDonald. That's not a great trailer, though.
It's an old trailer. You didn't like it?
No. What I would have done is, because we're a sketch troupe, is I would have shown a whole scene, sort of like, remember Throw Mama? You're too young. Throw Mama from the Train. Do you remember the trailer from Throw Mama from the Train?
It's on YouTube, though, and I can look it up.
Yes, look it up. It should have revolutionized, I can't pronounce that word today, trailers. It's just the best scene from the movie where Danny DeVito's mother hits Billy Crystal in the head with a frying pan. It's a great scene, and that was the whole trailer. And because we're a sketch troupe, maybe we should have done that. Because I wouldn't get the sense that it was funny from that.
I mean, you with running around with a cat on your head
That's
screaming
funny.
is funny.
Yes, that happens in my real life all the time. So that is always funny when I have my cats on my head. I force them on my head sometimes when I'm back at the house.
Let's go back to when you guys decided to make a movie. I know
Yes.
that Dave wasn't able to participate as much as he would have normally liked because he was on news radio at the time.
Well, that's a nice way of putting it.
Were you guys not friendly at the time?
Dave and I are best friends, and at that point he was on news radio, and he didn't like the direction the movie was going because we wanted to focus more on the story, and he wanted to be like focus on the laughs more, and so we had Dave and I actually split up during that movie. We were like a couple that split up, but we got back together right after the movie. Yeah, but he did the movie, and that's why he's in less than he should be. And also, I think what's missing from the movie is a lot of Dave's joke power because he wasn't around for the writing. And so I think that what I'm saying, it's a bad movie. Don't ever see it. I'm still like, no, it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
I love the
It could have
movie.
been even better. It could have been even better. But no, I think it's a good movie.
I mean, even though you said you guys got back together after the movie, did he have an "I told you so"? Or was
No, he's very polite. We're Canadians. Right. He never said that. Actually, would he?
you tell your wives I told him and they didn't listen. You don't say it to anyone's face.
Actually, he goes the other way and say, I was wrong. It is a good movie.
Oh wow.
He does actually say that.
I mean, I do think it's a good movie. Do you guys unfortunately not look back on it that way or look at it that way?
We think it's a good movie. No, I'm saying like I'm about to qualify something. I'm not about to qualify. We absolutely think it's a good movie. We're very proud of it. The making of the movie, it was the bad part.
It was tough.
It was tough. Dave and I split up. Dave and I, our wives split up from us. There were a couple of deaths in our family.
Wow, really?
And it was very hard to write because at that point we wrote for the TV show. We wrote in like 2s and 3s, but for this we had to write with Norm Hiscock, our best friend and writer.
Who's now actually like a very well hired, I guess you could say, comedy writer in LA, right?
like a big showrunner. It just did People of Earth, and so we had to stay in the 6 of us. And then it became 5 when Dave broke up for a little bit. We had to stay in the same writing room. We called it the boardroom of death, and we had to write together. And we could only turn to the next page when we all agreed, and we never agreed. It was like
that's insane.
Yeah, it was horrible.
I mean, I feel like you maybe would have been better off writing separately and then showing what you wrote to each other.
Yes, and by the end we did get to that. There's some scenes that our director told us we needed to write. And then and by the end, it was Bruce, Dave, and I. Everyone else had work to do. Like Mark was on Saturday Night Live, and Dave was on News Radio, and then Scott was doing Larry Sanders. So I remember Bruce and Norm and I getting homework. There's the first boardroom scene I remember I wrote, and this I just remember the scenes I wrote. But yeah, at that point, and that's when I think it made the show, the movie, more cohesive. Because when we were writing our separate scenes, we made them comedic, hopefully, but we also made them make sense for the movie. And I think that's when it sort of like tied things in a bit better. I really like the movie. I swear to God, I really like the movie.
What made you guys, where did the idea initially come from to focus on the pharmaceutical industry? Because it's 1996 and it's actually a pretty prescient film about America and the pharmaceutical industry. Now you can't watch TV without seeing crazy advertisements for pharmaceuticals. And America is really the only, I think, industrial country, or the only country that allows advertising in regards to pharmaceuticals.
Really?
I believe so.
The only one? Wow.
Maybe it's like 1 of 3 or something like that, but it's very few countries that allow that.
Well, I think in the 90s, it got going with, so sorry for coughing, Prozac. Prozac was sort of like, it was like a hula hoop. It was sort of very popular. And it was Mark McKinney that thought of the idea. And I think he sort of meant it as a thing of, sort of a parody as Prozac. But we had lots of ideas before that. We had idea, we didn't know, it took us like 4 months to figure out what the movie was going to be about. Our first idea was that we were going to be the basketball team that loses to the Harlem Globetrotters every night, and that would have been fun. And then we played a team. Can I say this word on?
You can say anything you want.
We were going to do a movie called The Asshole, where a serial killer was going around killing assholes in the city, and I was going to
basically Dexter.
Yeah, that was before Dexter. But then we settled on, and originally it was called The Drug. The movie's called The Drug, and then Paramount said we will not advertise it if it's called The Drug. So we had to change the name, and that was like a 6-hour horrible session in the boardroom of death where we were, what were we going to call it? The Happy Pill was one suggestion. Actually, I didn't like Brain Candy. Now, of course, I love the title, but I didn't think that was a great title at first.
What was it like working with Lorne on the movie versus with working with Lorne on the show? I imagine maybe he had less involvement on the show and more involvement on the movie?
He had less involvement on the show and the movie. He was great. First of all, he is a comedy genius, but he was great that he was busy with Saturday Night Live during the show. During the show, he would come like twice a year. And can Kevin wear more wigs? And then like fly back to New York.
Just say something to feel like he's participating.
But he is a comedy genius. If you're watching this, Lauren, I know you're. But he let us do. The thing is, he trusted us. He let us do whatever we wanted. And same with the movie. The one thing he kept saying, and from a making money from the movie point of view, he's absolutely right that we ignored. He wanted us to put our hit characters into our hit. Not that we were a hit, but our hit characters,
like the Chicken Lady,
Head Crusher, things like that. Scott's Buddy Cole, but they didn't fit into the movie. We didn't think that way. And he, I know he said, I know you're artists, and you're not about making money. But it's not that we were artists. I wish we were. It's just that we were anal, and we were thinking that we didn't know how to fit into the movie.
Yeah, it's really hard when you get locked into the creative space to sort of shoehorn in things that aren't necessarily part of what's tracking for you.
Like I feel I'm doing a TED talk. Like Dave said, we focused on the story. And we got jokes from the story, but it would be hard for the Chicken Lady to live in that world. How do you make the Chicken Lady live in like a downtown world where people are taking happy drugs? I don't know.
How did people respond? I mean, I guess because the film didn't do all that well when it came out.
Our nickname for it cost $8 million, gross $3 million.
Is that really the numbers?
Yes.
So then I guess you could say that the
We
majority.
didn't even make 8 million. We didn't even make 8. I'm sorry, keep going.
The majority of the people who saw it were probably fans of the Kids in the Hall
Yes.
already.
Yeah, in the first weekend, I'm sorry for keep cutting you off.
That's okay.
The first weekend, it wasn't in many theaters, and we were like in the game. We were number 10 in Variety box office. And we thought, the reviews will make it go up and up every week, like a Elvis Presley song in the 50s. And then after that, next week wasn't in the top 100.
Well, then you saw Ebert's review or something.
Yeah, Roger Ebert sort of killed it for us, I guess. And everybody that wanted to see it saw it the first weekend.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what was the reaction to like critics maybe who hadn't seen the Kids in the Hall, maybe like Ebert who hadn't seen the Kids in the Hall. Do you remember what the reaction was to Scott Thompson's character, gay character, and like your guys' approach to sexuality? Because the Kids in the Hall were far ahead of so many mindsets in the early '90s and up into this film.
We like to think, and we could be wrong. In fact, I know we're wrong. I just thought of something. Terry Sweeney, was Terry Sweeney openly gay when he was on Saturday Night Live?
I don't think so.
I don't think he was. You're right. I don't think he was. So I guess Scott Thompson was the first openly gay. I'm sure someone. I hope someone presently wrong. Yeah, like on a TV show, like where he played himself and he was openly gay. And
But not even just openly gay. I mean, the Buddy Cole monologues on the early stuff are so gay and so celebratory of not just gay culture, but subversive gay culture in like a John Waters sort of way.
Yeah.
And it's so beyond what anybody was doing on television or in mainstream movies.
Yeah, I like to think that that everyone knows that, but I don't know that they do. But I also think it added something to our comedy that wasn't just comedy. I think I'm about to say something pretentious, but here I go. I think it sort of helped make the comedy seem important. Sorry, I used the word important.
Or edgy.
Sorry.
You know,
edgy.
because I think at the time
Edgy is more fun than important.
I think in retrospect it's important. At the time it maybe was just edgy to a lot of people.
Yeah, and we were just doing what we knew how to do. That's all. I don't think I answered your original question, but we got a fun tangent about Scott.
When the film came out and
the reviewers.
The reviews, yeah. How did they respond to Scott?
I think it was largely ignored. I don't think that was mentioned that much.
I mean, there's literally a fantasy scene where he's like.
Where he comes out, I'm gay.
Not even that, when he's having like butt sex with a bunch of men in the military who have no pants on.
I think the people that liked us mentioned that, saying the Kids in the Hall are still doing their subversive brand of humor. But anyone that didn't like it, I guess I didn't read. They probably didn't really give us the really bad ones.
Right, that's true.
Right, I think the critics who liked it or didn't like it all agreed. I think they thought their favorite scene was the musical where Scott comes out and in the musical song I'm gay.
It's a wonderful scene.
It's a great scene. It's funny because Norm and I had written it first, and it was a totally different scene. It was when the character takes a pill and he stops being depressed because he realizes that he's gay. His name was Wally, played by Scott. And the way we wrote it, he went from house to house in the neighborhood, knocking on the doors. May I use your closet for a moment? It's sort of a bad joke. And he'd go in the closet, then he'd jump out. I'm out of the closet and I'm gay. And it sounds like a bad joke, but I guess what we thought was funny is that he does it 8 times. Yeah, that's funny. But Scott took that and made it into the musical, which is much better than what we wrote.
Yeah. When it came to some of your, I guess you probably shrug off this word, iconic characters that you had on the show.
There, I shrugged it off.
Yeah, it's hard to be called iconic. Did you ever know when you guys created a character that would take off and you would do it regularly that it was going to take off? Did it ever feel like, oh, this is one that could really land?
One I thought once. This is my story. Our character that Mark McKinney did, the Head Crusher. Where he goes, I'm crushing your head, I'm crushing your head. Once, 5 years before we had a TV show, Mark and I were on a double date with 2 women who were hating us. We were at a restaurant, and they were hating us, and then Mark, out of the blue, he was just inspired. He went to the 2 women, I'm crushing your head, I'm crushing your head, and they walked up and left. And then a few years later, we were writing the pilot, and I said, Mark, remember that thing you did in the restaurant? I'm crushing your head. He said, oh, yeah, I started to. So why don't we write that up? Because Lauren said, just don't write your own stage scenes for the pilot. Write some filmic stuff. I said, it can be kind of filmic. And Mark said, I don't think so. And I said to this, Mark, if you do Head Crusher, I swear to God, college kids all over the country will be doing it. And that sort of convinced him. And I was the one time in my life I was right about something like that.
What was the most difficult character for you to do that you had to do regularly?
There probably is a few. let's see. It was easy doing Simon and Hecuba, where I was like, evil. I like that. Sometimes the King of Empty Promises, where I say "will do." So it's kind of, sometimes I slip out of that voice, but there wasn't any psychologically damaging. I don't think. When I played women, it was easy because I'm pretty feminine. For some reason, I didn't know this, but subconsciously, I guess I think being a woman means having a British accent. Because I sort of do a fake British. I don't know what that says about me, but and I always ask to look like my mother. I don't know what that says about me either.
After Brain Candy, how long did it take for you guys to be able to come together and work together again? Because the show was essentially over at that point,
The show
right?
was over. We knew it was over by the time we started writing Brain Candy. Brain Candy had, as they say in show business, bombed royally. And then, of course, Dave and I there was a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So I guess we didn't talk about it, but I guess we had thought individually that it was over. And then a weird thing happened, because our show was originally on HBO. Comedy Central started showing the repeats, and that's where we got an audience. So, like,
Oh, I saw it.
Exactly. So for the 4 years, from 96 to the year 2000, we were building an audience, and we didn't even know about it. And then
It was on after school every day. I would
Exactly.
come home. I would come home from
I hear
school
that
and I
all the
would
time.
watch it.
I hear that all the time. Look, I hear that all the time. That's what I hear. So our manager said, I'm getting calls. You could tour and fill the Universal Amphitheater and theaters like that in every city. So we that's how we sort of got back together. And now we get back together every 3 or 4 years, and we do a tour. We did a mini-series. There's talk that we're trying to do a new TV show.
Town,
and then,
A TV show,
A new
wow.
TV show like Mr. Show did on Netflix. Or trying to do that. Because the plan always was, when we were young in the 80s, the only sketch troupe that had a Bible of a career was Monty Python. So we figured we'll do a TV show for 5 years like they did. Then we'll do a movie. It'll be a big hit. And then we'll do a movie every 4 years. So we were doing that, and then the movie stopped. But we still follow the blueprint in the sense that we get back together every 3 or 4 years to do something.
And now when you guys get back together, everything, all bad blood is washed away, and you guys are pretty good?
It's a lot better. It's a lot better, but there's still some bad blood comes. But it's way better. Do you know the band Camper Van Beethoven? Yeah. Take the Skinheads Bowling. No, am I alone?
Beginning of Bowling for Columbine, that song.
Yes. Sorry for screaming. I read an interview that sort of sums us up. They were famous for fighting with each other, and then they got back together in their 40s, 10 years ago, and they said, "Do you guys still fight?" And they go, "In your 20s, it's your job to be an asshole." But in your 40s, you sort of have to be an adult, and that's sort of what we're like. So occasionally, it comes. It's not like old bad blood. It's like new bad, because we're not like the Beatles, like the Lennon McCartney. We all write equal amounts, so we're all still fighting for our ideas and stuff.
Right. But so you're all writing equal amounts, and then most of your fights are about what you think is funnier.
Most of our fights are about creative stuff. Sometimes we fought about. In 1990, a new thing was starting called Gap ads. And they were doing, became very popular, Gap ads. Do you remember Gap? And there was, are there still Gap ads? I don't even know. And they were doing untraditional stuff. They were picking people that weren't traditionally model-looking, people they thought was cool, and they asked us to do a Gap ad. And we had a big fight. Two of us thought we shouldn't do it, that it was selling out.
You and Bruce?
No, sorry, Mark and Bruce.
Mark and Bruce,
that
excuse
looks like me in that picture.
Yeah, sorry.
Mark and Bruce thought we shouldn't do it, and the three guys in the middle thought we should do it. And then so sometimes we fought it like that. And even though it was like 3-2, Mark is like 4 people. So it was really like 6-3.
So now,
they won.
almost 30 years later, when you guys are on tour, does anyone ever go like the goddamn Gap ad in 1990?
No, I'm the only one that remembers it every now and then. And people just... Bruce did once say, maybe we should have done the Gap ad. He didn't know what it was yet, and this was the day that Neil Young was singing songs about selling out. Now there is no selling out.
Like 1990 was a completely different time in regards to that. Was when Kurt Cobain wore the T-shirt on Rolling Stone. You know, like corporate magazines still suck.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody talked about their favorite bands and stuff selling out. Now it's like, go make money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even go make money because they want to make money back then. I think it's more like this is the only way to make money. Yep. I think a band can only have a hit if you sell it to a commercial or to a movie. So I'm all for that now. But back then we were from a street called Queen Street in Toronto, where it was like Greenwich Village. It was like artists. It was like Greenwich Village was in the 50s.
Queens West, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we were like kind of artsy, but we were. I guess we were right for our time, but we were wrong.
Who still lives in Canada these days, and who lives in LA?
I'm the only person I lived in LA forever. But I'm the only person living in Canada. Winnipeg, Manitoba is north of Fargo because I fell in love with a woman who lives in Winnipeg. So I'm in Winnipeg. Oh, that's nice.
Fell in love with a woman who lives in Winnipeg sounds like a song title.
I fell in love with a woman who lives in Winnipeg.
Maybe clunky. I don't know. Maybe it's too long.
I like it. I fell in love. Yeah, it's too many words. I fell in love with a woman.
We just got to find a way to crunch that down a little bit. We have a good
Pause
hook.
between woman and Winnipeg. Woman in Winnipeg.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your podcast, the Kevin McDonald Show.
Yes.
This guy right here.
Yeah, that's a great poster. It's sort of Terry Gilliam-ish.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Were the Kids in the Hall really influenced by Terry Gilliam? You told me backstage that the new ending, or the original ending for Brain Candy, was very Brazil-inspired.
Very Brazil, yes. If you see the movie at the Alamo tonight, you'll see that it's very much like the movie Brazil. Yeah, we were very influenced by Terry. Very influenced by Monty Python and Terry Gilliam movies for sure. Because they were sort of darkly funny, and he sort of followed the story too. We're funnier than Terry Gilliam, so when we follow the story, I think there's more comedy in it. But he's better than us, so his movies.
I don't know. I like Terry Gilliam. I find him wacky without a punchline sometimes.
Well, sometimes he is. Like
that drives me crazy. Especially
like the pirate
Brazil.
movie, like the pirate movie For Meaning of Life. Do you remember the short that he did?
No, I don't.
It opened the movie. It was supposed to be in the movie, but it was too long, and Terry Jones took it out. And that's exactly what it's wonderful. It's wonderful, but it's way too long, and it's without a punchline. About old men that their building becomes like a pirate ship, and they attack a big conglomerate building. It's like they make it seem like two pirate ships, and it's wonderful, but it's definitely like without a punchline.
Is that possibly where you guys may have gotten the idea for your pirates that sort of go around the office and take like clobber people and take them with you? Do you know the characters that I'm talking about?
I forget that one. I'm bad.
There's two. It's you and I don't remember who the other cast member is. You're in like a rowboat.
Oh,
you're going around.
The fur trappers.
The fur trappers. Yeah.
Well, no, but subconsciously maybe. Who knows? Like I always said, subconsciously, what have I stolen? Yeah. I mean, that was two scenes that there was two characters that Dave and I used to do, and we were in a thing called theater sports before we met the other guys. So you had to improvise. And whenever the rest of the group was in trouble, we'd pretend to row our boat out and, hello, Jacques, hello, Pierre, and we'd be like fur trappers. Or as we call them in Canada, Coeur de Bois.
So let's talk about the Kevin McDonald's Kevin McDonald Show. What made you start a podcast?
You know, I was listening, a friend of mine, Phil, from New York, sent me a podcast, sent me Mark Maron's podcast, where he was talking to Todd Rundgren, because I love music. And Phil said, you should have a thing, because it'd be kind of funny where you're a comedian talking just to musicians. And I said, that's good. Then I got involved with Forever Dog, doing like a TED Talk. And so we were going to do that. The only thing, Forever Dog made a mistake of making it live in front of a live theater. I was going to talk to Brad from Crash Test Dummies, old friends. And I thought, well, if it's going to be like a theater with a live audience, I feel bad. Why don't we just make it like a comedy variety show and make me interviewing Brad a small part of it? So then it became what it is. It's a variety show. There's sketches and I do a funny song in it and monologues. I'm going to do a monologue tomorrow night about my drunk dad. That'll be funny.
Daddy drank.
Daddy drank. I'm gonna take it from there and make it darker. So we'll see what people in 2018 think about it.
Yeah, that sketch was always pretty dark.
Yeah, tomorrow will be darker. So we'll see.
And what is that? Isn't the part of that where he gets his dad tap shoes?
Yes.
Right? And he's like, you know, I can't dance.
Yeah. Right. Because he said that he could kill me in my sleep, which is a true story. Right. My dad said that, so that's funny.
Wait, really?
Yeah. My dad always said, you know, Kevin, I could always kill you in your sleep because you just have to be willing. The tap shoes was a joke we made up later. He just said, you just have to be willing to do it, and I'm willing to do it. Good night. So it'll be actually.
There were lots of good daddy drank jokes on the kids.
All our daddies drank.
Right. Yes. There was that great McCullough sketch where he takes his kid out.
That's a true
on
story
his birthday.
Too. Yeah,
really?
Made him drive at 12. Yeah, because he was drunk. Because the dad was drunk, he made Bruce, little 12-year-old Bruce, drive.
Right. Oh, but then the whole part where he takes him out to watch him get shit drunk.
Yeah.
That was made.
That was exaggerated, but he did make him drive.
Have people seen that sketch? It's like one of the best sketches that you have, where he's like, it's his son's 13th birthday, and he's in order to be a man, he's like, you got to watch me get really drunk. Yeah. He takes him out to a field and drinks a full bottle of tequila.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the true story. I think the true story is that he brought him to a bar on his birthday, got drunk, and then Bruce had to drive home. I think.
That great line where he's like, oh, once broke my hand on a pineapple. I'm sorry, I love that sketch.
Only Bruce McCullough would think of a joke like that.
Full Chris Farley on you right now and be like, remember that time? Remember that sketch?
And I'm Martin Scorsese, and I love it.
So yeah, going back to the
variety
show.
But it's like the way that I would do a variety show. It's sort of me making fun of a variety show at the same time doing a variety show. And we've had great guests. We've had Mike Myers and T.J. Miller.
That's right.
And I wrote one of the shows. I wrote a rock opera. It's just a rock opera with Ben from Death Cab for Cutie, based on a true story that happened to me. And he plays Dave Foley, and I play Kevin McDonald, and that was fun.
Who wrote the original song for? Is it Shadowy Men from a Shadowy Planet? Wrote the original song,
yes,
right?
And they went to high school with Bruce. They were a rock band. At that point, they had a different guys singing, and they were called Crash Kills 5. And Bruce McCullough said when they were drunk at a bar once, always drunk at a bar with Bruce McCullough, he said, "If I ever get a TV show, you guys are going to do the music." And it happened.
Yeah.
Sorry for screaming.
Well, no, I just was thinking that because you were talking about interviewing musicians. I wonder if you would ever have them on or talk to them about writing that song for you guys
that's
and where
a
it
good
came
idea.
from.
That's a good idea. Can I copy your idea?
Absolutely, because that song for me, when I go back and watch old sketches, or if I'm watching them on YouTube or like one of my DVDs or something like that, whenever that song kicks on, I think because I would watch it after school all the time, that song feels like home for me. I'm just sort of like it's like a warm blanket at times.
Like me with the theme from Gilligan's Island.
Is that true?
Yeah, no. But there are shows like that, like Get Smart. Dun, 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 dun. That's sort of like home for me. And I think that song influenced theme songs for comedy shows. Like The Daily Show sort of had their song has like that kind of feel.
Or even Pete and Pete, I feel like have a very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like surf rock, Tex-Mex kind of whammy bar guitar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when was the last time you and the kids got together for a tour?
We got together 2015. We played New York like ridiculously 3 times.
So it's been about 3 years. Does that mean that you guys are gearing up for one soon?
Well, we're gearing up for something. Hopefully, it's a TV show.
Right, that's right.
But if not, if when that inevitably fails, then it'll turn into a tour. And we have so many new scenes from the last 2 tours. So we would still write new stuff, of course. But we already have like new sketches that we would love to show to people.
Is it hard? This is. I hope this question doesn't come off as rude, and I apologize. Is it difficult for you?
I'm already insulted.
Is it difficult for you guys at this age to write certain kinds of sketches? Because when you're young, you can write sketches for old people and you can play old. Yeah. But when you're a little bit older, it's hard to write sketches for young people and play young, I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I find that my brain and all of our brains are divided 2 ways. One of the ways is I'm still writing sketches. Like I'll still write a date sketch, which was a first date sketch, which is crazy for like a man of my age. But that's the way I think, because that's what I was writing when I first started writing sketches. But the other half of my brain, like 10 years ago, we wrote a lot of new sketches about having kids for the first time. We wrote a scene called "Hateful Baby," which where we just hate our baby. So half of us are dealing with like what we are now, but half of us still think it's like things that could be like when I was 25 again.
Well, I imagine it also can be a little bit difficult as well, because as the quote that you used before, it's your job to be an asshole in your 20s. And
yes.
It's your job to be an adult when you hit 40.
Yeah.
When you are an asshole in your 20s, it's a little bit easier to be. To have the constant mindset of make fun and throw spitballs at stuff.
Yes.
And be cynical about things.
But once an asshole, always an asshole. So even when you're trying to be an adult in your 40s and 50s, there's still that asshole. So we still write things like "Hateful Baby," right. And whatever else we wrote that was dark. But part of me is dealing with. Like I wrote a sketch for the podcast. It seems too dark. Even I know I could say it. I won't. Where I played the son, and the producers just naturally thought I was playing the dad. But no, the funny part's the son. So I make a joke where the announcer of our podcast mentions how old I am, too old to be playing the son. But I still think, part of me still thinks that I'm 25, because that's when I started writing a lot of sketches.
When you, if you end up doing this show for Netflix or whoever you end up doing it with, are you guys going to be able to sort of use some of your classic characters, or are those potentially owned by like Broadway Video or someone else if they're not a part of it?
Well, hopefully right now we're talking with Broadway Video, so that would make that easier. Yes. Hopefully, but if not, I don't know how that would work out. We wouldn't be sad. We would just make new characters. Right. That's the other question. Do we do all new characters? Do we do Head Crusher again? Here's a question. Is there anyone here a Kindle Hall fan? Okay, 4 people. I have a question for you. Would you be disappointed if we the new show didn't have the theme song? If we did a different theme song? Because there's some debate with that in the troupe. Anybody? You think you need the same one?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, that's all the fans think. But some of us, not me, but some of us think that maybe we do a different song.
You tell them, shut up.
Shut up,
Shadowy
Dave.
man.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
not there anymore. He was there, though.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question?
Hi.
Hello.
Our first question is going to be an online question from Mark. Mark wants to know, do you have any advice for aspiring comedy writers?
The advice that I have was probably only good in 1990. It's probably all different now. But the only advice I would give that's timeless, I guess, and it's hokey advice, but it's true. Write all the time. Keep writing. You've got to write at first, even when you're not good at it and you think it's bad. So keep writing. And then you keep writing to find your own voice. Learn the rules about writing. Take a writing workshop, a sketch writing workshop. I teach them. Take a sketch writing workshop. Get some rules, and then you've got to know the rules to break the rules. And once you break the rules, you find your own voice. So just keep writing all the time, even when it's bad. Finish every sketch. Finish every sketch, even when you think it's not. I know you're not the one asking. I know you're not Mark. I'm not mad at you. You tell Mark. As for getting selling writing stuff, I'd be even horrible at that. Even if I didn't have 1992 advice, but to get good at it, keep writing. Always finish a sketch. Even when it's bad, just make sure that every sketch gets a little better, and find your own voice. Learn the rules, break the rules. I'm saying things like a workshop teacher. I'm sorry.
How do you find that it's incredibly hard to end a sketch? Sketches can
that's
be
the
really,
hardest thing.
Yeah.
You know, Key and Peele was sort of like a perfect sketch show. They did everything right. Their premises were great. Their acting and their characters were great. They had twists that were great, and I found that almost every ending was great. I don't know how they did it. They did something. They were their sketches were always funny and technically perfect. And I don't know what the secret of that is. Did they have a lot of writers? Is someone's going to come up with an ending? I don't know. But yes, traditionally the thought is that writing the ending of a sketch is the hardest part of writing a sketch.
I mean, I love when I'm watching a good sketch and you can the line at the end is basically just kind of like that's the end.
Yeah, I know.
Clearly, there's we had to get this one out, and that was
the sketch I'm doing tomorrow night on my podcast show. I couldn't think of an ending. So the characters started just stopped talking. And they said, "What's the ending, Kevin?" And I wrote a song called "Kevin McDonald Didn't Think of an Ending for this sketch," because I couldn't think of an ending. Actually, I probably could have thought of an ending, but it wouldn't flat. I thought it was funnier to end with a song saying I couldn't think of an ending for this sketch.
Next question.
Hey, Kevin. So working on the podcast, has it given you more freedom to work on better material as opposed to when you were doing Kids in the Hall?
Well, hopefully, this is what I really think. I'll never do better material than the Kids in the Hall. Because the five of us sort of just worked really well together. We sort of had a chemistry. Because there were 13 kids in the hall before we were discovered, and people kept quitting because they had good jobs. And the five of us weren't the best five. There were others way better than us. But we were the five that worked the best together. And
was Norm ever a performer with you guys as well?
Norm was a performer
later, and he became a writer on the show. How did
Norm
that
was a
happen?
performer. Half the kids in the hall are Dave Foley and I. And we had other Toronto people that quit that were brilliant. Luciano Casimiri. They were a group, Mark and Bruce were in a group called The Audience, which Norm was in. Gary Campbell, Frank Van Keeken were in. They were all brilliant. I was convinced that they were going to be the stars. Norm quit because he got married and had to work. And then by the second or third season, we thought, wouldn't it be fun and less tiring for us if we not hire writers that send us stuff. We didn't want that, but writers that were actually kids in the hall. So so Norm came back and became a writer. And to answer your question, but I try to improve I try to make sure everything's better. Like the advice I just gave, I try to make sure that everything's better, everything I write. I know I only have a few years left before my ideas become wither out and die. The fall of my career where the leaves start falling off my creative tree. So until then, I'm trying to write better every time I write.
One more.
Hi, Kevin. So I know you've done some voice acting and some animated movies.
Guilty.
How do you like doing voice acting compared to just film or podcast work? Or also, I always wondered where the name Kids in the Hall came from.
Oh. I'll end with that one. I love doing voice acting, but for silly reasons, I'm losing my short-term memory. So it's great that you have a script in front of you. I love that. It's amazingly tiring. I read once that Tom Hanks said when he was doing Toy Story that it's way more tiring than acting in a movie, and it is for some reason. Especially me, because all my characters are dogs that fall down the stairs a lot, so I spend hours going, ow, oh, ow, oh, ow, oh, and that's very tiring. But I'm very lucky that I got to do good cartoons. Some of the things I've done that aren't Kids in the Hall, I'm a little ashamed of. I'm sorry for, I won't get the name names, but there's some things that I'm proud of, as proud as the Kids in the Hall, and Invader Zim is one of them. I don't know if you know Invader Zim is something I'm very proud and very happy, and I know I'm very lucky that I got in it. Okay, here's the Kids in the Hall. Sorry, how we got the name. First, the Kids in the Hall, Dave Foley and I and Luciano Casimiri, we were the troupe that started it, and we couldn't think of a name. And we did this thing called theater sports where we perform every week, and we do improv. And so we couldn't think of a name, so our first name was We Can't Think of a Name. And then we had taken theater, so we were pretentious. We called ourselves Uncle Vanny and the Three Sisters, but nobody liked that. Then we called ourselves the New Beatles, but that was just a trick, because then we pretended to split up, and then we called ourselves the next week the New Paul McCartney and the Wings. And then some guy who was like hailed as a genius in theater sports, he said, these guys have something. I'm going to take them under my wing, and I'll be their director and their producer. And he forced us to call ourselves Mixed Nuts. Oh, it was horrible. We were like mixed nuts. I'm Brazil nut. He's pistachio. It was horrible.
How many times did you guys get on stage and go, and we're mixed nuts?
We never said our name.
Oh, really?
We were called that for a couple months, and we were so ashamed of it. But here's the story. As the Mixed Nuts, we got discovered. We were in Toronto to do a local Toronto TV show. It was a variety show, and they wanted 3 comics, and they wanted youth. And we were like 19 and 20, and we looked 15 and 16. So we got the show. The show never happened, but they had a party for the show, and it was a great party. And at the party, the producer, who was the guy who who created Let's Make a Deal, because he was a Canadian, he cornered Dave Foley and myself and Luciano Casimiri, who later quit because he suffered from stage fright, and he told us a story of the Kids in the Hall. He said, you guys remind me of the Kids in the Hall, and even though we're like comedy nerds, we didn't know what that meant. And he said, back in the 50s, Sid Caesar had that great sketch comedy show, and he had great writers. But every now and then, when he wasn't happy with the writers, there were young guys at 30 Rock, where they did the show, literally pacing the hallway, selling jokes and sketch ideas. And Sid would always go to them because he was open-minded about where he got his ideas. And if they sold enough, they became regular writers. And 3 Kids in the Hall. Maybe people here are too young to remember these. 3 Kids in the Hall are Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, and Neil Simon. They were all Kids in the Hall.
I thought Woody Allen was going to be one of those. Because
yeah. And he was really young. He was like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he sort of tells the Kids in the Hall story in Annie Hall. And later that night on the subway home, it was Luciano Casimiri who said, you know, we're kind of young. We had no idea we'd grow old. Why don't we call ourselves the Kids in the Hall? And that's how we got the name.
Well, that's wonderful.
Good question.
And tonight at the Alamo Drafthouse, you can see your personal copy of the director's cut.
Yeah, the director's cut with a different ending. Dave Foley does a different character in it because we had to cut it out because it only makes sense in the ending. There's a scene with Janeane Garofalo. There's 5 or 6 new scenes. It's sort of a different movie. It's a very rough cut. The print is bad. I don't sell things very well.
No, I think if people are Kids in the Hall fans, they're going to be there
no, I've
tonight.
shown it a few times. Nobody cares about the print or mentions it or notices it. And tomorrow I'm doing my podcast at the Podcast Festival. It's
right.
9:30 at NYC Podfest. Where is it? Abrams Art Center somewhere. 9:30. Michael Ian Black, Jordan Klepper, and Wheatus. Remember them? They're my guests.
Kevin McDonald, everybody.
Thank you.